please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Hi, a very good afternoon. You're watching Your Stocks on CNBC TV18. I'm Ekta Batra and with me is Nigel D'Souza, and what a recovery we are seeing for the market. So we are still down over 600 points for the Sensex, but if you compare it to an over 1,000-point fall that we had seen for most of the trading session, it puts things into perspective. Similar case for the Nifty, which was down over 300 points at one point in time and is now down around 176 odd points. The steepest or the most stark recovery has also taken place in the mid-cap index. If you see, in fact, the advanced decline ratio after a dismal 22 stocks advancing for around 2,000 stocks declining, we have around 213 stocks which are advancing to around 1,800 stocks declining, just to give you a sense in terms of the kind of buying that we've seen at lower levels for a lot of these stocks. But we're still waiting by for a lot of nifty numbers to come out. So for example, we have Lupin, which should be releasing numbers anytime soon, and that stock should come up for you. Besides that, a couple of earning reactions which are spotting the space as well, and something like Natco Pharma, which is down around 1% at this point.
Well, Ekta, you'll feel quite good actually. The bulls will feel good that at least they went ahead. They defended the 100 DMA. That came in at around 10,355. So for the bulls now, the recent low of around 10,280 approximately, that becomes the stop loss really for them. It's good to see we have seen this recovery. In fact, it's a very, very sharp recovery. And the Nifty now has conquered the 10,500 odd mark. So it's done very, very well. And I'll tell you what, this market, this correction has given a lot of those that had that left out feeling to get into stocks they like. Case in point being something like a Eicher Motors. That's recovered close to around 5% from the low point of the day. That story continues to be strong. Yes, the stock is expensive, but it's always been expensive, and yet it was seeing buying. Maruti, you go to buy a Maruti, you'll see the kind of demand there, the waiting list, the pricing, everything is looking good there. That stock as well recovers considerable amount. The stock had corrected from around 10,000 all the way to around 8,900. The short point is that if you were buying a stock at around 30, 31 times, then when it comes to 26, 27 times, though if that is your favorite stock, you can go ahead and buy it. Even take a look at Century Textiles. Those numbers look very, very good. The cement EBITDA per ton came in much higher than 500 rupees on a per ton basis, and in fact it's moving higher from around 200 became 300. Now in fact it is 500 rupees on a per ton basis. And just take a look at the intraday recovery on all these stocks. By the way, the Nifty is not stopping over there. Just take a look at it. I mean, you pull up some of those stocks, some of them are seeing a big buying. Now the banks are participating. ICICI Bank, that's a heavyweight in there. That's recovered considerably from the low point of the day. Axis Bank as well as HDFC Bank. So with the Nifty Bank recovering close to around 400 points from the low point of the day, that's giving the bulls a real fight. And now the recovery really from the day's low is more than 220 points on the Nifty. On the Sensex, it's close to around 600 points. So that's a sharp recovery. And pull up the European markets. Everyone was bracing, for a sharp downtick on the European markets. You pull up the CAC, the DAX, as well as the FTSE. At one point of time, the futures were indicating close to around, a 4 to around a 5% downtick in terms of those markets, but they have recovered considerably from the low point of the day. Some of these sugar stocks as well should be in focus. The government has doubled the import duty on sugar to around 100%, and yesterday as well.
There were reports of that coming through, but I think they've gone ahead with it. Is basically to obviously protect the domestic prices of sugar and the domestic production of sugar. So they've doubled the import duty all the way to around 100%. And I was just reading, Nigel, that this has been a year all the way since November of 2017 of last year. We've seen a lot of the agri-commodities import duties are in fact being hiked by the government. So this would be one of it. For example, pulses has been hiked, as well as wheat has been hiked to around 20 odd %. So this would now apply to sugar, but that import duty is doubled all the way to around 100 odd %. It would be important eventually from an inflation standpoint as well.
Yeah, so that's in terms of sectors, some of these stocks are spiking up as well. But the real theme has to be the Nifty, the Sensex. The Sensex, just pull up a year-to-date chart. This morning we were talking about we had a great start to 2018, and now we were trading with a bit of a cut for year-to-date. With this recovery of around 500 points from the day's low, the year-to-date chart should come up for you. We have moved back into the green, so we're yet gaining again for on a year-to-date basis. That's a 12-month chart. I'm talking about from December 2017 till date. You'll see that in fact it's a bit of a recovery. So good going. Now the important part is the final 90 minutes. whether or not we can hold on to those gains. If we can hold on to these gains, then in fact the bears will really be having to run for cover, because there's plenty of shorting that's been done. The bulls, though, they'll feel that they put up a good fight given the recovery that we have seen. The global markets turned a bit, the losses are not as much as anticipated, and that tells you that in fact, you know, we are seeing this good recovery. So good going. Let's see how these last 90 minutes pan out. But 10,500 levels, if you can hold on to that level, very good. Short point, 100 DMA has been protected. Let's see whether or not, in fact, we can go ahead and maybe, in fact, close at around the 10,500 odd mark. But we have plenty of queries that are coming in there. Sharmila Joshi as well as Rajat both join in to take stock of all your queries. Thanks so much, Sharmila, as well as Rajat, for joining in. Rajat, before we talk about take any of those queries, I wanted to ask you, what about the markets? This kind of a recovery, how are you seeing it? Is there a trade there now? On a closing basis, what should we be looking at?
See, first of all, I would say that I'm really very enthused about this recovery, in the sense that I was not expecting the market would sustain on a recovery mode today above 10,450, and now that it is above 10,514, I would say that I would closely watch if it actually takes out 10,566 to about 10,588 gap. That is a very crucial gap, and that if that gets filled, that means this recovery has a lot of tailwind with it, and probably if there is no further carnage internationally today, then we can expect a good recovery to have already started. Having said that, what I would say is this, that we need to sustain above 10,700 to about 10,750 once we take out 10,600, and that means that mostly 50% of the total fall would be covered by that, and that is definitely a sign, a very encouraging sign. And as of now, unless the 100 DMA that you referred to earlier, if that doesn't get taken out further, then that would act as a short-term base, and from there the rally can build on. And as I said earlier, about an hour or so back, that this recovery has to be, initially it would show a lot of strength, but later on this would have to be a gradual recovery. If it is a V-shaped spike, then we would repeat what we experienced in 2008, that a 1900 fall was quickly corrected by 1100 points, and after that it was slow and gradual decline. So we need to be very watchful. Do not commit yourself too much. There are stocks, a lot of good stocks have come to good levels. Partly one can do some kind of bottom facing if one is planning to hold them for long term, but otherwise please be more watchful.
Okay, that is definitely sound advice which is coming in for the markets, that you need to be watchful. You need to see whether this kind of recovery that we're seeing on an intraday basis in fact recovers or rather sustains going forward, and it's not just a flash in the pan. So let's see how we close up trade. But as of now, we
seen for the European markets as well, you know, they started with a cut around 3.5%. Now the CAC is down less than 2%. So it's a good recovery that we're seeing on those markets. Yes, for us as well, we're sustaining above the 10,500 mark. So that's pretty good news. And from the broader markets, Jet Airways, it's taken off. Just take a look at the intraday recovery there. Close around 4% from the low point of today. That one moves to the day's high. Praj Industries, those numbers come out, don't look too good. Net profit, in fact, has come in much lower. And I think I saw the top line as well. The revenues were up by close to around 12% or thereabouts. So let's see whether or not there's a bit of an operational miss. These two numbers, in fact, they're telling us that, the bottom line is much lower. So I don't know whether it's an operational miss or below the operations we did have some bit of a hit. So we'll wait by for those set of numbers. But by the way, we've got another query that comes in there. Manoj writes to us from Kolkata. He holds around 200 and... okay, all right. I think we have Apollo. Okay, we're getting some live visuals coming in there of Apollo tires. They're going to be detailing those numbers. Remember, the European business, that did take a sharp knock on an operational front. So we'll wait by for further clarity in terms of what are the pricing of rubber going ahead. How does it impact their margins? How's the domestic piece doing? And how is the international business as well doing? I think we can cut across the management. Okay, in just a bit, we'll get back with that. For the time being, let's try to squeeze in a query, I think. We have Manoj who writes to us from Kolkata. He holds around 250 shares of RBL Bank for the last 9 months. He's a long-term investor, wants to know whether or not to hold or sell. His buy price, by the way, is 534 rupees. Let's go across to Sharmila. Sharmila, Your take on this one? He's making a loss of around 15,000 rupees.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that, since he mentioned that he is a long-term investor and, in that sense, RBL Bank is a fairly new listing. And, I think overall, those are the banks that I would be positive on as compared to some of the PSU banks. So, for me, the stock is a hold, provided he is a long-term investor.
Okay, all right. I think we can go across to Rajat as well. Rajat, your take on RBL Bank?
See, RBL Bank actually shows that 450 is a very strong support area, and it tested that level yesterday and after that bounced back, and today again it went very close to that and now trading at 474. So I would suggest holding on to RBL Bank shares with a closing price stop below 450, because there is every possibility that this stock can actually give a good recovery at least up to 515, 525 levels.
Those are the Berger Paint numbers, and it's a little off maybe in terms of the percentage growth that we were envisaging, but the profit seems to be in line with estimates. The EBITDA is also better than our estimates at around 223 odd crores versus 213 odd crores. So the revenue growth has been around 14 odd %. The margins have come in better than expectations, and the profit too is a little better than what we had anticipated. So I think it is an operationally strong quarter for Berger Paints this time round, and the revenue is not looking too bad either. But what stands out is that the margins have come in better than estimates, and that's probably helping in terms of the stock performance at this point. We've seen a little bit of a nick on the top from the day's low for Berger Paints. So we're going to wait by for more details, but the volume growth is seen anywhere between 10 to 12 odd % this quarter. And in terms of the other details, we will probably have to wait by and hear what the management has to say in terms of the raw material costs and also in terms of what they are seeing going forward. But overall, seems like it's a good set of numbers when it comes to the operations, the margins, as well as the bottom line.
Absolutely, yeah, that's right, Ekta. Good growth is what we're seeing, 14% on the top line. I think the margin number should come up for you too. Yeah, so that's around 16.5% approximately. So that's a tad bit better, I think, than what we were working with. We were working with flattish margins. It's a bit of an expansion. That explains why, in fact, the stock is spiked up 16.6%. That compares with around 15.7% on a year-on-year basis. These numbers will go down well, and but I think the stock trades at around 35 times or thereabouts. So just keep an eye out on that factor as well. Stock is recovering though a tad bit from the low point of the day. The Nifty as well, holding on to the 10,500 mark. By the way, just pull up the Nifty, the intraday chart. We have moved on. Let's move on from Berger Paints. The Nifty comes up for you. Let's get that up for you. Just take a look at the Nifty Bank. There's a big, massive recovery that's come in from the low point of the day. ICICI Bank, Axis Bank, India Bulls Housing Finance. Let's guess all these stocks up for you. There's a tremendous recovery that we're seeing. We should get that up for you on the ticker, really. There's a big recovery. And I'll tell you what, we were talking about protecting the 100 DMA. Now we have crossed the 50 DMA as well. The 100 DMA this morning we were looking at, that's 10,356 odd. Now we have crossed the 10,552. That was the 50 DMA. So there's a big recovery that we're seeing on the frontliners in particular, those banking stocks, even Tata Steel, HDFC Bank. Pull up the intraday chart of HDFC Bank. That's one of the biggest weightages on the index. And you also have SBI. That's recovered. The Nifty Bank. Absolutely. The Nifty Bank. The Nifty Bank in particular, that was down closer around 900 to around 1,000 points early morning. That's recovered roughly around 750 to 800 points from the low point of the day. Ekta.
And I just want to point out Bajaj Finance, Nigel, because that has actually already lost over 12-13% on a year-to-date basis. So a lot of people who wanted to buy Bajaj Finance are probably did see the opportunity to buy it, considering the kind of run-up or the kind of fundamentals that any which way support the stock. And we're seeing that stock spike up to the high point of the day, up around 2.7% at this point. But like you mentioned, it's all about the NBFCs, it's all about the financials, ICICI Bank, India Bulls Housing Finance, Bajaj Finance, ICICI, like I just mentioned, all of them in the green at this point.
Absolutely. And Berger Paints, yes, the numbers are a good set of numbers. And now, in fact, the street is taking note of that. The stock has moved higher as well. But we should get these, these flashes out. Pull up the European markets. Big recovery on there as well. Now the CAC is down only 1.5%. It started off with a cut of around 3.5%. So there's a big recovery there. And even the futures, S&P 500 futures, pull that up. that's indicating a big pullback today just to start off with. Let's not get too excited, but at least for the time being, we've moved considerably from the low point of the day. The